Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I am a bit sleepless, but bear with me through this episode. The title is How to Glide Through the Winds of Evolution, and I want to share a commentary on really what it means when the inner realm activates. You see, we are all human beings, and as human beings, we get access to two dimensions primarily. The human dimension, which has to do with the design of existence, and the being dimension, which has to do with the experience of being. So, if we can find a proper balance between how we are an existential design active through an experiential being, when we speak about the inner realm, that has to do with how subjects change the implication of objects. The idea of the winds of evolution. This idea came to me a while back, and I can tell you I even wanted to create a YouTube channel under this term. Then my attention got drawn differently. But the idea of the winds of evolution was that, imagine on the surface of this planet there is intelligent rhythmic currents, and we feel that the space of human existence only belongs to the human idea, or the idea of the self through a limited possibility is claiming itself as king. That means, who put the thin king in the mind of man? And so ever since we've been thinking, we have become thoughts, and thoughts can die, break, change, manipulate, be weak, strong, shy, bold, and endless attributes can be given. The moment you treat yourself like clay, you can be sculpted in any way. The winds of evolution is an invisible moving force, and this invisible moving force is not just the concept of survival, the subjective concept of survival that this creature concludes from its environment. It is how nature moves before man. That means there is a knowledge that was accessible after the eyes opened in an object and a subject. But there is also a knowledge that was here before you and will be here after. The scholars say there's two worlds, really. The world that is the dash between the day you were born and the day you exit, the day you entered and the day you exit. And the world that was here before you and will continue to be here after you. And all of human knowledge is to use the time we have while we're alive to figure out what life is. And if we can share this with our species, the better. But the aim is to figure out what the living event is. And it's not something, I would say, super different than what we are experiencing now. If you again look at the word human being, the human is the verb. Being is a noun. The human idea changes. In the past, they saw the human being in a certain light. Right now, we're seeing the human being in a certain light. And in the future, the guardians of the original earth, poetically the human beings that begin experiencing planetary romanticism, which then becomes reality. You see, in a world where nobody knows anything outside of their conscious experience, we must treat the psyche as a separate room. And so, whether I am speaking now or whenever I have spoken in my life, the forces that are at work surpass ideological classification, and as you become more selfless, the witness is trust. So there is a ratio we can create here, that the more selfless you become, the more automatically the world is trusted, because there is no self to doubt. You know, there has been moments in my life where in my inner realms I have denied myself because of, okay, I'll give you an example. This was a very big life lesson for me, but it happened when I was very young. I remember I found myself in a situation with a group of people, and in my inner realms I saw ahead the conclusion and the aftermath of that, what that group was planning on doing, and I was part of the group. And this was like in middle school. So in middle school, I think grade 8, 7, something like this. The whole point of it was that I trusted the mind of the outer realm. And I saw something that I knew it was going to reach a certain conclusion, and I shared it with the crowd, and the crowd literally as if one ear and it left the other ear. And what's fascinating, it reached my conclusion, and it was in that moment where I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean? That I was raised in a world that I trusted since childhood, but the world that I trusted couldn't see what I see. And so this is really where, I think this is really what sets human beings apart from one another. Not how much they can be together, but how alone they can be and realize they never can be. You see, it's on a very simple level. If we treat ourselves as energetic beings, everybody's completed their mission in life. You know, we've been energy, you know. Energy happened, we happened. Okay, that you could say that's a completion of the lifetime. But then there's the sophisticated levels that we perceive. So we're not just energy. There is a body here. And we're not just a body. There is an awareness of this body, as if the body is, again, I use this metaphor often in these talks. The body is a candle, the body of the candle. The brain is the wick of the candle, and what has lit the candle is the world. That means there are candles before us that light the candle we are. And so to discover the glow of your mind, this is when your inner realms activate. Now you could be a human being hearing me, and your inner realms might have activated, gosh, I should have explained this context. what do I mean when I say the inner realm? For those of you who are new, and whoever's going to listen to this in the future. You see, I have done something which it is more known to me than others. And you see, there was a man named René Descartes, and he came up with a very important idea in philosophy known as the mind-body dualism. This is René Descartes' mind-body dualism. Okay, the idea that the mind is in its own room, the body is in its own room. Now, various philosophers have attempted to try to find some sort of, or attempt some sort of explanatory effort to explain a coin from both sides. My attempt as a human being in history, and what I have designed, I call it Mr. Within's inner-outer realmism. And I can't tell you how much I've spoken about this in these talks. It's ridiculous. Like, I think I've spoken about it enough to... So many people think speech is just to share an image. But many people don't realize to share an image is to influence the overall program. It's just remarkable how a giant percentage of what is happening in our lives is a story. And it's a story that the moment our eyes open, we can tell ourselves. I can give these talks. I can't give these Mr. Within talks in the middle of deep sleep, you know. So I can only give these talks in a conscious waking state. So the precondition to humanized activity is wakefulness. It's attention in a room. That means if there's no attention in a room, the stories of mankind have broken. And so this is why I'm saying the true idea of enlightenment, it is not for a human. And it is not for everyone. And let me tell you why. Because it is only for those who have noticed the collective unconscious and a mystery has arose for them. That some answers are way beyond selfhood. That means there's some ways to access vision that it cannot be communicated 100%. I will testify. There's ways, there's states of mind a human being can enter, and they can perceive imagery that the language has not been made for. We don't have the language for it. We can't even storify it. Like seriously, like when people made the dictionary, it wasn't like gods made the dictionary or advanced AI programs. It was human beings that made the dictionary. And so it means it was all the attempts of trying to symbolize matter behind our eyes. That means it is not just the subject that becomes the object. The object becomes the subject. I will tell you something very ridiculous, personal about me. In my life, in moments, since childhood, my father would gift me with these dervish Sufi rings and like tasbih, it's called, like rosaries, these stone rosaries. And in Iranian culture, like there is I don't know how to explain this, but it's like because church and mosque and state are not separate. Its religion has somehow, if it was a tree, its roots have entered the cultural program to an unavoidable point where people have accepted it. That means there could be various nations on this planet that are religious, not necessarily because the people of the land were religious, you know, because the religious ideology became so much part of their lives that they could not be avoided. And I'm not saying there's something right or wrong. To me, I'm actually, you can either see me as very, I'm on the side of history of all those people on this planet who have said that truth is beyond language. So for me, all language is geometry. Somebody could literally come and tell me a story, a good or bad story, and I just listen to shapes. Because in my inner realms, I have realized it is our birthright to realize we call it to think in images. How foolish we have been for calling it that. It's that the mind is an endless film. And believe it or not, we take ownership of the body as a mind, but we don't realize our mind has no owner. If the mind has no owner, it is free will that chooses what it sees. That means it could be that, I think no one's ever said this statement on this earth, but it could be that the arbitrary ego is isotopic, I don't know, is isotopic and homogeneous when it comes to arising anywhere in the psyche. That means, this is very hard to explain. I'll go back to this. What the body can't do, we say the mind is doing. But what the mind can't do, what do we say is doing that? You know, and some people were like soul, and modern society was like, we don't like that word. And so the ancients are like, gosh, you know, how can we suggest that there is something watching every object and subject that has moved as you and as others in this realm? When will we realize that the world echoes behind our eyes, and that echo is not us? That means, for philosophers, I would say ultimately humor becomes the most highest level of philosophy. Why? Because meaning in a multidimensional system has no linearity. That means, imagine there was a part of you that was temporary, a part of you that was eternal, then a part of you that was temporary in another universe, then a part of you that was eternal in another universe. And so these were all modalities, as if you're this one branch and you have all these leaves connected to you, right? And you're realizing slowly, after eons of simulated time in the void, and what I can say very firmly, what the Buddhist mind forgets, that so many people are trying to get out of a wheel of karma, a wheel of reincarnation, not realizing that you can only reincarnate if the concept of time exists. So just the person getting a glimpse that there's a state of being that is timeless, that is unconditional to time, if time was how we were limited, if time was how we were limited to how matter changes. So stuff is moving and it's dragging our attention, and we're calling that time. Yeah. In this idea that I've considered of the inner and outer realmism, to tell you really what inspired me, I love stories as a human being. ever since realizing life is contained in them. Now, some stories, they relate to physical reality, to what is in front of our eyes. Some stories relate to what is behind our eyes. The stories that relate behind our eyes, they go into two classifications of memory and visualization, which means past and future. So how something was an earlier reference point, and how currently this moment is a reference point, and how in the future there will be a reference point. Now, if a person has a memory of the past and is existing in a present, which means in the second memory or in the future memories after that first memory, it means a person has enough context to endlessly probabilize in their inner realms their future. So the more you stare at something, the more the brain's like, why am I staring at this? And it keeps trying to reconfigure, reinvent the significance of why the attention is there. Now, so anyways, I'm a fan of stories that are science fiction and fantasy. And one of my favorite shows, not per se because of the characters, but just because of how karma, for me a good story, is when the karma of the fictional characters is real. It doesn't matter if the character is whatever, but how the world treats that character is in accordance to its input in the story. That means if there's a wrathful character, it's as if the cause and effect notion is abided by in the narrative. So I remember seeing the scene in Game of Thrones, and it was like for the realm. I don't know who was saying it, but there was this sense of honor for the realm. It was from, I think, the idea of the Night's Watch. I don't know, the light that protects man from the darkness or something. I don't know how the words work, but the idea of it was that the human beings in that fantasy narrative were living for the realm. Okay, and I was like, wow, how remarkable. My whole life I've been trying to honor myself, honor others, honor my various events in regards to the specifics of how they're happening, but it had never occurred to me that you can honor your whole realm. And perhaps that is what the samurai saw. And the hidden, you can say, pointers in Hagakure by Yamamoto Sunetomo. So this idea of having an honor for what is in front of your eyes, which I term the outer realms, and what is having, and that kind of suggests that you can have an honor for what is behind your eyes. To have the honor for the inner realms means to understand it, because if you don't see something clearly, how can you honor it, right? I mean, it's the same thing with love, right? It's like, how can someone who doesn't see something as it is love that thing, right? It's like somebody seeing an artificial impression of a person, their artificial impression from a person, and then it becomes something where it's as if attention, the moment it sees something real, has to make a choice. If it wants to keep staring at that real, or if it doesn't want to stare at reality, it will deviate into different subjective narratives. I'm talking about just basic human psychology, how when we, you know what it is, it's like that person, I remember seeing it in this movie, I think it was Talladega Nights, where the father came to be with the family, the father who had left his wife and kids, like one of those fathers who had gone to buy cigarettes and never came back. And so this father it was a demonstration of just the psychology, that the reason this father couldn't come back, because this father felt he had hurt his family. And because he felt he had hurt his family, he felt that if he went near his kids, if the moment became perfect, he would hurt them again. And so this is the biggest reason, right, why many people don't change, even if they know how to change to something. Because you gotta feel to yourself you deserve it. And I don't know how a person can deserve anything if there's not effort from within going to without. You know, that means it's as if somebody picks up, let's say there's like a 50-year-old man, okay? Or let's say, I don't know, let's say there's a 30-year-old healthy athlete, okay? And now imagine someone like a robot is like using is picking up the spoon and feeding this like super athlete, right? It's as if like the athlete is gonna eat that food, but it's like you didn't put the food in your own mouth. It's as if you didn't live really in the moment to have a real karma come. So that is the biggest clue. You know, this is the biggest thing, that if the person, it doesn't matter if like, I mean, of course everything can matter, but I'm saying, if the person, let's say you're a salesman and you're like, buddy, my job is simulations, you know. I'd be like, okay, if you have to lie to the world, let's say a noble lie, let's say you were Plato, and we wanted to justify, we'd be like, okay, your noble lie is okay, we will give it access into culture. It's as if you may lie to others, but to lie to yourself is the biggest error. And it is possible to lie to oneself. And it's not lying, it's just not not trusting that extra effort, a nanosecond of a moment where the intuition was like, should I go or not? Like that, there's a nanosecond. Like so much of how the human psychology works, it waves. I'm telling you, if people have this attitude, we treat our thoughts literally as if they're orbiting around us, you know, I'm telling you, who decides what your eyes are? There is a force here. It's not like the movies where it's like some power, like, yeah, Gandalf, raise your staff, you know, and, you know, shout at the Balrog. It's like, we don't have a power like that. But the power we have is to notice in emptiness we are the movement. And this is where it becomes significant to notice if your inner realms and outer realms, if your inner realms have activated, and if your inner realms are moving faster than your outer realms. If your inner realms move faster than your outer realms, you begin seeing, like, it's like chess, where there was this chess master, his historic chess master named Kasparov. And Kasparov was facing this computer made by this genius engineer named MacArthur. I forget his full name. And the machine was called Deep Blue. And so Kasparov, this chess player, is facing Deep Blue. And I remember, if I remember correctly, Kasparov, in each chess move, each second that he saw a chess piece, he processed 3 chess moves. Like he was a chess master, his mind had been in the gym for a while. So he could in each moment see 3 chess moves. They came up with that conclusion, but the machine could see 1,000 moves in a second, right? But when this machine faced this chess master Kasparov, the first time the machine lost, and there was hope for humanity. It's like, yeah, you know, that was the first like defeat of the machines. But then the next year, the machine came back and the machine could not be defeated. And because there was an additional dimension that the human psychology gives, and I honestly feel, Rationality is for the storage of knowledge. Irrationality has to come in for the updating of knowledge. Because rationality is considered with the known variables. The irrational may include the unknown variables, which can be recycled into some sort of utility based on the genius of the social engineers of the future actually wanting to liberate, bring a designer's liberation. Because design, this is something strange. I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me earlier, but design is not free. This is very strange to say because everything is design, and it's not like design can be owned. And I'm not talking about artwork, I'm talking about virtual perception, how our senses are right now in a three-dimensional space-time continuum, and as we move with the faculty of the brain and the memory, we can have the fourth dimension. That means even the scientific explanation of the fourth dimension being time, if we couldn't move in the space-time continuum, what time? Time for who? If we never did anything to see who we are, you know, it's like something. There is a fire that I feel. Or let me say it better. There is a lighthouse in the depths. Imagine a lighthouse in the middle of an ocean, and this lighthouse is like a giant, like skyscraper tube coming out of the water, just like a small lighthouse in the middle of the water, but it's this giant tunnel city. But it's impossible with the ocean current, so I don't know how that's going to be possible. Because over time it will break. I mean, it's not. Building cities in the ocean is, you know, even the fish are going to laugh at us. You know, the fish are going to be like, look at these human beings trying to be like fish, you know. If dolphins could talk, go back to the land, you know, you strange creatures. Okay. Excuse me, I needed an intermission. Pretty much, okay. Okay, I would say this like this. An object after a very long time became a subject to itself. So we have a room where objects make sense, and we have a room where subjects make sense. Now we are considering in a weird way that an object is becoming a subject, is generating itself as a subject, right? And we need a brain to, in some sense, we need an object to be a subject, but in some sense, I don't know how to say it. We need an object to be a subject, but what we consider to be an object is a subject. So an object can't know itself. There has to be a subject. The subject is looking first person point of view, the self subject, let's call it self dash subject. The self subject is looking through the eyes, first person point of view, right? So right now as I'm speaking, I'm saying I'm a person, and I'm speaking, right? So what is looking throughout the eyes is a subject, but strangely, even though I am saying I am this subject, I notice a vast landscape of subjects, and it seems that what we claim as ourselves is just what out of this vast viewing of forms is being chosen. It's as if your ego is the chosen one out of all the ideas roaming in your inner realms, yeah? Imagination is experiencing reality. And all that reality can do is imagine, keep dreaming. You know, and so we are caught in this dichotomy of an objective truth and a subjective illusion, and an objective illusion and a subjective truth. For example, all the religions, they have a subjective truth. For them, it's as if the content written in that book is more important than anything in the world, because it's as if like that's like the missing piece to the puzzle, it seems. In the chat section, Lies says a question: when we realize that the duality of subject-object, when we realize the duality of subject-object, we can just let them both go and be. Observe both in space in which things come and go, knowing we're nothing in everything. Yes, you can be a spirit beyond your body. But is it necessary? Is it what this moment in history needs? And let's say you do. You go and experience, you witness the object-subject simultaneously, and you get a snapshot of a fragment of a timeless moment. You know, a non-fragmented sense of time. You will realize, when you realize you're that being, it doesn't matter if the subject or object is there. I would say this is true freedom, or a true ability to pilot in this plane of existence. When how the object has a relationship with the subject, it is simple. And how the subject has a relationship with the object, it is simple. And so as the realm begins from simpler principles, then the complexity of the object-subject, of the subject-object, is based on your eyes. You know, when people think this world has to be a book, they try to find meaning outside of them only. But when you realize life is also a notebook, that means it's not that there should be anything written there before. It's not that the person can only learn things. You know, it's like everything being taught was once a discovery. And if it's worth teaching, it's usually a discovery. Elsewhere says, how does a Jivan Mukta become a Parahamsa? Oh my God, if the Jivan Mukta still wants to become something, is like it's like good luck holding the void. Anyways, there's so much to say this episode, and may the winds of evolution carry this talk. So the winds of evolution, it is the logos in motion, in collective motion or collective recognition. It is us recognizing that the forces of nature are changing how the universe appears to us, and the forces of our own free will in interpreting the forces of nature also suggest how whatever we see appears to us. That means there's two levels of filters, right? One is like the laws of nature are filtering what the world can be. Then the laws and the rules of your own psychology and conditioning and self-attribution is like filtering everything you see. So it's like what the laws of nature filters, then our brain through the laws of our own creation filters. Yeah. Imagine that this first person view you have from your eyes at an incredibly fast, or let's say close to instantaneous speed, just went forward endlessly as if in a vacuum in space. Or imagine like a purple light beam just from your crown of your head, just going endlessly into the sky to the edge of the observable universe. A wind travels and moves everything it comes into contact, but is never there. And in the Bhagavad Gita, where it says, as if like the liberated being, it's not that the enlightenment means to them to stop living life and stop living as a creature. It means that you live as a creature, but you're in your inner realm, you're selfless, because you have noticed the deeper presence of conscious energy, or whatever you like to. You know, I mean, for me, my intelligence has surpassed being a shape, being a symbol, being an image, being something with a color and a story and a narrative. Like, I'm that person who, it's like people are like, "Are you spiritual?" I'm like, "Sure," and they're like, "Okay, so how do you see the idea of the spirit?" And I say it's not fathomable. It goes to a point where it's as if before we had the suffering of a self, you have as if like the knowing of the universe. It's weird. And we are here acting like, oh my God, you know, so much of the world unexplored, but really the brain has done wonders. And you can glide in this realm, just like imagine a bird catching the wind, a fish in the ocean catching the current, or I don't know, let's say a kid in a developing country just grabbing onto the edge of a truck to get to school or something, which is incredibly unsafe and chaotic, but you know, what are you going to do, kids? They say when the student is ready, the master appears. I feel when the mind is ready, it automatically advances. The universe has not forgotten we are here. We have forgotten the universe is here first. So, The winds of evolution are nature's first, are the laws of nature set into motion. And the way we glide in a world of objects and subjects that are changing, and subjects change really quickly and objects change slower. But for the human being, for example, you could say a subject to someone and they can freak out. You could say a subject to someone and they can smile. And so subjects can change human psychology, but that is not normal. That is out of insecurity of our multidimensional birthright to know our faceless face. You see, it's as if like we want freedom, right? But what if freedom entails in it not just everything, but nothing, and also that which is beyond everything and nothing? So if we want true freedom, we cannot attempt to contain meaning. This is why the intellectual approach can never find freedom, but it can endlessly update things to max precision. Sveta says, what if this is a classroom and we're supposed to be where the rubber meets the road facing our fears? You see, you can choose to interpret the divine will in many ways. In certain mystical circles, they interpreted this realm as an enslavement, as a prison, as something to escape. For example, all those people who like yoga, I'm telling you, yoga surpasses yoga pants. It goes to a point where it's a world view that everything we see is a dream, right? We don't know what the future is going to be like, but we can know the momentum, the speed and direction we have is a suggestion of at least where the future is going. And so if the winds of evolution are personalized, let's say there was an invisible collective cloud being in a symbiosis, that means it's like, who knew? Invisibility was a being. The desire to get rid of desire is a desire. What will happen, I feel, for the future generations is that two things, that either we're going to advance communication before the year 2050, or we're going to become the communication of something else. You see, you can say the same way human beings are eating animals, you can say for a creature that processes information, it can consume how we are in a formation. And what I mean by this is that it's like right now we're experiencing a ridiculous, miraculous phase of peacefulness. And anybody who thinks there is war, and it is true, there may be messed up events happening on the planet, but I'm telling you, it is nothing compared to what could have happened. So many people want to find aliens, and so many people don't want the aliens to find them. Why? Because can we carry our findings? Like if an advanced alien landed on Earth and made contact, and they were like, who should we send in to talk to this alien? I'd be like, go wake up a yogi from Samadhi. Let's have someone with negative karma come and speak. Negative karma means even if bad karma happens, it cancels. As if you have credit from elsewhere. Okay, interesting questions coming in from the chat section. Sveta says, is there a karma for karma lords? First of all, no, because that wouldn't make sense. Because one is the programmer, the other is inside the program. So it's like, okay, let's say if the programmer enters the program, sure, there is karma. But it doesn't mean that karma is the same as the karma for a program in the program. The Lords of Karma is not an idea to touch lightly. It is a suggestion that there is it's as if we are the imagination of higher dimensions. Now, when we speak about the higher dimensions know already what's happening. So as if a two-dimensional being, a square could hide something to a square, but a square could not hide something from a cube. So if you're asking me, I'll tell you, the cube, the Lords of Karma, at least in the the mythos of my inner realms, they only smile or they're silent. Excuse me, they laugh or they are silent. The lords of karma don't speak. And I feel that's why they are beyond karma. Because if you get attached to language, if you forget for a moment that the mind is the wind of evolution in motion, it's the universal intelligence active. Sorry guys, it's been an all-nighter for me. My inner realms spike more than usual. There's a poem I want to read. If I can find it, and if the audience can practice silent meditation for a moment. I would like to read a poem by Rudyard Kipling, and the poem is called If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream, and not make dreams your master, if you can think, and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop, excuse me, and stoop and build them up with the worn out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. And lose, oh sorry, I read that. If you can force your heart and never sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on where there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. That last line, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, that means if each minute of your life, which you will, when it says unforgiving minute, as if that minute won't come back, if you could practice 60 seconds of just a concentrated effort, the earth is yours and everything that's in it. We are conditioned to feel this world is designed for finite creatures. But I feel it is the opposite. Instead of instead of FIF, it's IFI. Instead of the finite going towards the infinite and then going back to the finite, or the infinite coming to the finite and then returning to the infinite. Perhaps energy was never human, and if we remember the essence of energy, we have gone beyond our humanity. So it will be a dehumanized state, and this is where it's key that we create, as if I'm saying, be human first, then whatever you like, because that is the headquarters. We don't realize, because we fathom ourselves as just a being in one dimension, we don't see its value. But the body is like an anchor. The body is an anchor. And so however way this ship in the ocean gets pulled, the anchor keeps it there. Your body is it's the liftoff platform. But what pilots do is like the airplane, the experience of the plane of existence is beyond the body. The future will become nature. The present is nature. And the future will become nature. The present can be natural. The past is nature. If our body moved faster than our minds, we would never know our body moved. Because our bodies move slower than our mind, we know the body moves. And we can say free will is an illusion of the comparison between two different dimensions of speed. If the mind starts living too ahead, what can happen? The mind can trick the body by living multiple lifetimes I don't know how to say it. It's like the mind can go so fast. Like, think of our mind going at a certain speed. Now imagine our mind going at the speed of light. In Einstein's work, the faster we go to the closer we get to the speed of light, the time slows down. So imagine our mind went to the speed of light and it became timeless. And so when a human being experiences a timeless moment, that is technically, of course, through the shaky certainty of the cultural program, time, when you don't know what the time is, you're going faster than light, theoretically. You can ride the waves of the mind. The speed of the inner realms, when the inner realms and outer realms sync, you will find Jungian synchronicity. What that means is your presence, the presence of your unconscious presence, your conscious personality is remembering your unconscious presence. Yeah. That means you suddenly know your inner realms live the moment ahead. And so that's how they were in sync. That means that's the right space. That means synchronicities, people think it has to have some esoteric meaning. No. It's that speed. Whenever you experience a synchronicity, that is the proper speed to pilot at. what can I say? When experiential truth goes beyond words, really. My experience of my inner realms is that when I wake up in the morning, where I find my body is like an event. So that's like the first film that I gotta catch the sense of, catch the rhythm of. Once that film, I've caught the film of my conscious waking state, then I entertain, you can say, sub films or films that are, it's as if you're seeing something that is, let's say, 100% of objective, an object, and then it's as if you close your eyes for a moment, and that thing you saw that was 100% an object in your inner realms remains as 100% as an object, but you are not seeing the object. That means the fact that a person can close their eyes and access an image, there is no light. That means visualization shouldn't make sense. That means we see visualization as a verb, but how can you, when there is no light, move? And it's as if it's like when the person closes their eyes, they are in the earliest memory. They're like waiting in the station of the earliest memory. So, guys, I thought of doing something interesting. I found my science fiction. I've written some chapters of science fiction. And I want to read for you one of those chapters. Okay, so I'm gonna actually open this up to audience engagement. So there's 5 people listening. So this is the audience engagement part. So people can suggest a name. Okay, so keep in mind I'm gonna read titles or choose the number. Okay, these are chapters which I'm giving the audience like a ability to choose the destiny of the talk. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. So the first chapter is called The Vision Approaches. The second chapter is called Where the Last Earth Resides. The third chapter is The Memory Speaks. I don't know where the 4th chapter is here. The 5th chapter is The Ocean on the Mountain Peak. And okay, there's some chapters missing from this, but there is a chapter called and it's Rasul Remembers. So these were the different chapters. I don't know if the audience remembers or what people could choose. Okay, whatever, guys. I'll just make this easier. In-person audience engagement makes more sense. So okay, where the last earth resides. So I'm gonna read this, guys. People are gonna get to hear my voice on paper. And remember, this is fiction, and this is, I'm reading for you like this is a giant science fiction work I'm working on, so I'm just reading for you like a manuscript chapter. So, where the last earth resides. The main character, by the way, is Rasul. The story is set in the year 5025, and there's and I'll let the story reveal itself. Rasul, throughout his life, would get intuitive commands from his divine will. Rasul is the main character. It was as if nature wanted something to be done, and Rasul's whole being would intuitively respond. The world speak through Rasul, and the wise ones of this world knew it innately, even before having ever met him. Nature spoke to Rasul like no other being on the planet, and Rasul knew this. Rasul is the main character. So nature spoke to Rasul like no other being, none other being on the planet, and Rasul knew this. He knew it in a way that all beings had access to, but few had truly realized. As he walked on the city streets, to the traditional beings, 2 p.m. to the futurist time did not exist linearly for them. He was walking in quotations I've written, Manhattan, New York, which had become the most spiritual place on the planet from the most egotistical. In this timeline of the world, to the traditionalists, being the year 5025 and the fourth dimensional season of spring, to the futurist timeless, the streets of this pure Manhattan, New York were being washed by, in quotations, sadhus of the highest Himalayan order, and in quotations, priests of the Church of Modernity, and in quotations, compassionate monks of the Temple of Full Warp is one word. In quotations, and many donations being made by egotistical, robotic, wealthy businessmen who were given a chance by the enlightened society. The enlightened society is the government of this universe. The enlightened society to walk in the shadows of mankind's lesser evolved evolutionary footsteps in their own dimension of access and spiritually simulated world. Human beings had become so compassionate that they were allowing unknown artificially intelligent robots to live in ways that human beings had lived before, just so they could experience what it would be like to live in the eyes of a human soul. Oh my God, where was I? Oh yeah, live in the eyes of a human soul. The old idea of, in quotations, Wall Street in this modern version of the, in quotations, old New York had transformed into a market of enlightenment. What used to be known as the filthy streets of Wall Street had become a pilgrimage attraction for all kinds of spiritual saints and God-conscious women and men from around the world. If there was someone on the street of modern, in quotations, Manhattan, New York, and that person could suddenly tell you the history of the place, and guys, this is just remember, this is a rough draft. It would be something. So it's like if there was someone on the street of modern Manhattan, New York, in quotation, that the person could suddenly tell you the history of the place. it would be something like this, where that person would tell you how there came a time in human history that suddenly many enlightened sages and compassionate religious hearts were intuitively guided to Manhattan without the grander scheme of their destined purpose revealed to them until their actions were taken. Once a community of an enlightened force was established in Manhattan, the enlightened and wise ones of Manhattan all literally journeyed to, in quotations, New York. This is guys, remember, this is fiction. I'm writing, there's some inaccuracies here. As if for the first time selflessly, the city of Manhattan, I think Manhattan, I've even written it differently. The city of Manhattan's people had all walked to New York, and especially where where there were walls and streets, graffitis with blindness on blindness, sparking a wave of, oh my god, what am I reading? Hold on, guys. The wise ones of Manhattan all literally journeyed to the in quotations New York, as if for the first time selflessly. People had all walked to New York, and especially where there were walls and street graffitis with blindness on blindness, sparking a wave of compassionate, selfless unity in that sector of planetary existence. And through glorious surprise, New York had become the most spiritual place on the planet, and the world had experienced world peace many times over, as if third world countries did not exist when countries like children are part of the family of human existence. And so the wave of graceful enlightened wisdom that had come from Manhattan to New York had been so profoundly intense that, as if Manhattan was an enlightened guru and New York, like a selfless disciple, had witnessed the grace of a compassionate cosmic personality beyond age. New York had become so touched by the enlightened wave of wisdom that had come from Manhattan to guide it, that administrators of New York had honorably changed the name of the city into Manhattan, New York. I don't know, guys, what I was doing here when I wrote this, but anyways, as an act of love beyond borders, Rasool felt a gentle breeze pass through his awakened mind. Out of nowhere, a robotic man in a CEO suit walked up to him. A thought visited Rasool's mind. He instantly knew this robot was the robot Astros from the robotic realms, I think. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. Out of nowhere, a robotic man in a CEO suit walked up to him. A thought visited Rasool's mind. He instantly knew this robot. The robot Astros began to speak. O wise silent one, I am the CEO of the most powerful company in the robot worlds. Tell me so, how can there be a greater reality than being externally here, but internally living somewhere else? So the robots come to the main character, which is a human being, this like rich CEO, robot businessman, and he's saying, what greater reality can there be than us being externally here, but in our inner realms being somewhere else? As if the robot's mind is an AI from elsewhere, but its body is in the outer realms. Excuse me. Rasool smiled and began to speak. Beyond the door of, in quotations, Kant, there you are, in quotations, your answer. The robot took 0.0003 seconds to compute than usual, and Rasool's timeless soul felt this. The robot seemed to be shocked silent by its own behavior and the shift in its computation mechanism, as if the robot was a human, its heart would be beating faster than light. Rasool walked up to the robotic man and placed his gentle right hand on his left shoulder on the suit Astros was wearing. My wise machine friend, there's nothing to compute about the creation of the creator. There's only a moment of 01, in quotations, in brackets, God, spelled in caps, program. So Rasool is saying, my wise machine friend, there's nothing to compute about the creation of the creator. There's only a moment of 01 program. And in the unknown, greatest treasures of knowledge are revealed. Accept yourself and free you should have always been. Rasul suddenly, as if going in a profound, unique altered state of consciousness, began speaking in binary language at a speed incomprehensible, as if a holy man was semi-consciously, repetitively chanting prayers with his rosary, moving his fingers faster than what the speed of measurement could count. So guys, this is hilarious. Here I've written translation to English from hypothetical binary. And for the binary language, I just wrote 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. That's it. Just like this, just raising the 0, 1. So I'm going to read you this hypothetical binary translation that this main character is doing, if you're following the story so far. Rasul is saying this in binary language to this robot. Our planet is alive, and the whole universe is, Asteros. Don't take your moment of being likely. It holds within it the secret of all worlds. And never forget, your inventors are the closest thing to parents you have, as a gift from God. So remember, he's saying this to a robot. He says, as a gift from God, in quotations. And through the devotional communication and sincere service in a family dynamic, all robots will be able to observe and record enough natural human behavior to copy for themselves patterns of how human souls moved on this earth. Robots may not have souls, but as they artificially create duplicate patterns of how a living soul's functions are embraced, robots are able to artificially have a soul in the shadow of their higher dimensional creators, beyond the realm of machine bodies and in the infinitude of irrational numbers. Your compassion to your source will liberate you in the finalization of the story of your robotic creation and life. And your compassion through your inventor, you Astros, may perhaps be one of the first in the robotic realms to remind all that even though money and power may be luxurious, serenity for your computation he says, and your compassion through your inventor, you Astros, may perhaps be one of the first in the robotic realms to remind all that even though money and power may buy luxurious serenity for your computation mechanism, regardless of what may suggest you're not divine, your world is. Be free before you forget. So literally, like in binary language, he gave like he told this robot how to have a soul. Then Astros, literally a message comes through him, as if like a message. Astros says, "O wise one, a message from the higher council of the robotic shamanic tribal community has come for you." And the message says, "My dear friend, come see me, Chief Justicar Nova." That's it, right? And it says, an old friend from his childhood had requested to see him. Rasul did not say no. He blessed the robotic CEO visibly and thanked him for his message-to-speech transfer. Where was I? Message-to-speech transfer. Astros thanked him as humanly as his robotic mind could, and got into his golden Porsche to attend his other matters. Astros will be forever known as one of the greatest beings of the robotic realms, but rarely does he know it. So that robot is playing a huge significant role in how earlier I told you in this sci-fi universe I've created, where robots are in their own realm. You know, and just another way I could say it, it's like human beings have become like the guardian angel level. Not all robots can see it. Only the richest robots or some authorized and liberated robots are able to see humans. Rasul continued his walk in the park. It was a beautiful eternal day. Spring had spoken beautifully this season. He saw a beautiful stream. and a big rock in the middle of the stream. He simply made his way across and sat on the rock cross-legged with his back towards where the stream was coming from. As he looked ahead, he felt a moment of bliss and his eyes closed meditatively, going forward into the unknown. He opened his eyes in his subtler planes. The deepest thoughts began whispering in his ear, but he knew better than to pay attention to them. In his subtler planes, he was walking to the Pure Lands, where thought remained silence and only the soul of souls spoke. Before he took the last step to collective conscious presence in his mind, the entrance of the Pure Lands, a memory of his father, Bismillah, began to visit him. And that's the end of that chapter, guys. Whoever endured through that, round of applause for yourself. Honestly, guys, my aim is when I look at things, it's like really there was this show where the characters in the show were endlessly trying to surpass their limits. For the human being, that has to do with sight and novelty. And novelty, the quickest way to find it is from within. The long way to find it is from how something from within, from others, has come into the outer realms. Guys, there's something I gotta read. I'm gonna read this one part, but this part I'm gonna read. It's just a chunk of a chapter, so you can't really place it in a context, but it's cool. So I said earlier, I read it in the earlier chapter. There's something called the Enlightened Society. I want to tell you something the Enlightened Society has done and how it did it. So the Enlightened Society is the future government in the year 5025 in this sci-fi novel. And there's even parallel universes, and the Enlightened Society is the first is the first government governing different parallel universes of Earth at the same time. The first multidimensional government. And in this story, it's so cool. There's a chapter where you see a council member of the Enlightened Society, and it's literally a person who's made of light. That's it. It's literally a person who literally has hands and legs, like the outline of the human body, but it's just made of pure light. You know? Excuse me. So it says the Enlightened Society had decided that religions of the world did not need to be exterminated or fought against like some uncontrollable force of chaos of belief. The Enlightened Society decided to treat religions like great works of art that were provided in the blessed eyes of master painters possessing the divine touch, possessing the divine touch of compassionate universal vision. With a vision of unknown significance come many divine mirrors falling from the sky. Such works of art must not be painted over or modernized upon, but appreciated for their unique beauty of outlook. However, just like the trunk branches out, all regions shall not ignore the modern branches of their influence and their ability to live for all of us rather than for one idea of one of us. The Enlightened Society exuded a wave of wisdom all around the planet that only the universally conscious could truly appreciate to understand. More was spoken. So now this is in quotations. This is something where the Enlightened Society and the world story is literally saying to the people. All artworks must be preserved based on their historic significance of the time of their creation. And religion is a work of art that can be acknowledged as one of the first human attempts into personalizing the whole cosmic scale into a story and relationship men of the old world could open through wonder and understand. In our elegant modernity, our first step shall never be a cruel one. The Enlightened Society lives through us all. Art can never be destructive. Excuse me, guys. Art can never be destructive, for it was birthed through creation. And creation, with a capital C, demands the consequence of its origin. The tolerance of the old is advised, and the humility of the new is requested. May compassionate integration be the only command left to utter, commanded the enlightened society. Yeah, and that's it for the sci-fi tunnel for this episode. This is so just in the chat section says what book, if I may ask. This is a science fiction novel I'm reading. I just read some chapters for you from it. But hopefully it'll be out soon. I think in a month or so I'll be, if you know, I'm in such the habit of giving these talks that I'm pretty my focus is on these, but soon I'll be giving at least chapters of the novel out. So anyways, back to the topic. So how to glide through the winds of evolution. Evolution is an event happening on its own. It's a universal event. We discriminate and separate ourselves from the universe to be in the universe, to then have an ability to have ideas and beliefs and disbeliefs and theories and perceptions of the universe, right? Now, if we consider that there, behind people's eyes, there existing a subject, and the subject is in the mind's room, and it pertains to the mind's life. So if there's the mind's room that the person needs to be sensitive and aware of, and then there is the body's room, right? So a room where you got to be able to understand objects, and this is where physics, science, and all the efforts of human beings to precisely explain the outer realms has come in. And when it comes to the mind, we're studying the potential of humanity. Really, that's what philosophers can do, you know. Because philosophy is a universal question. Sorry guys, my attention went to the chat section. To continue. So it's important to be aware of the mind's room. So to be aware of the mind's room, we gotta study and we gotta pay attention. Pretty much how Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's guru told him, pretty much study your attention all the time. And Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj was like, whoa, okay, you know, and he did, right? And he realized its nature. Just like as if you're a blacksmith and you keep hitting with a hammer, you know, to straighten the sword, you know, and you keep hitting, and eventually you understand why you're hitting the hammer on the sword. So the mind's room, think of it, the mind is a film, overlaying the body, which is a film. The body is a slower film, the mind is a faster film, and there is a person watching the screen. So first there's an objective screen, and then there's a subjective screen. Okay, and then there's the person sitting in the unknown cinema theater watching it. So this movie of our life, we are filtering objects through subjects, and how subjects are there are as spontaneous as how our attention finds itself in the room. So there is nothing rational about in an elemental universe there being the consideration of a thought. You can say the concept of rationality in an elemental realm is irrational. So the mind is a film. Now, if throughout the day, let's say you're a gentle person, you have a heads up in this. If you're a gentle person by nature, or passive, this is where not lethargy, but passivity, preferencelessness, simplicity. This is where simplicity really helps, where simplicity in the outer realms allows you to notice the complexity in your inner realms, and complex moments in the outer realms, especially, for example, if a person thinks of emergencies or fears or moments of panic, they become like a kind of suddenly pushed out of the moment. Like the paralysis of fear is because the attention doesn't know what to do with what it's seeing, right? And this is because it hasn't stabilized as to do it. It doesn't mean it will always know. There's so many moments that it's like when you have no idea what's going on, all you can do is test the waters, and then you still don't know what's going on, you test the waters a bit more. Then you don't know what's going on, you test the waters a bit more. Then you're like, holy shit, it's like there's something else completely there, right? Excuse my language. But to be aware of how your mind is happening, that is a great state of being. And anybody who can watch their mind throughout the day, go high five a mirror. That's incredible. You have noticed, you're learning from how the universe is moving you before you're an idea of you. This is the aim of all synchronicities that unfortunately the new aim cultural paradigm glorifies into entity worship. So for me, it's as if the New Age community is making the mistake, and of course this is my fault. I mean, it's not that the New Age community should change, you know. But I'm just saying that it's to me it appears that it's rather than being like an astronaut or a scuba diver or someone who's just going further into the unknown, it's as if we went a little into the unknown, then we closed, we just set camp and we stopped going any further, right? And so any moment a person on a very inner true way stops engaging the unknown, life may feel comfortable, but your mind will feel as if it's falling, and your mind will feel the world's passing it. That means the body and the mind, they are a film. Now this film is being realized to be there by a witness. Like right now as I'm speaking, you think what is watching this moment is like the words I'm saying. Somebody can ask me, who are you? And I'll be like, you know, anything I want to say. That's why. Because language, no. Because the reason I'm saying that so casually is because because language is literally like the paint, and the choice of the content that we identify with is literally like we're cherry picking out of all the ways the inner realms have seen the possibility of something. I feel the ego, the best analogy that can be, one of the best analogies, after an egg, like literally an egg, like imagine a chicken egg, like and after that analogy being like the first best analogy for the ego, the second best being, let's say, technology, and the third best analogy for the ego I would say is so an egg, a vehicle, and sorry guys, I'm just trying to think. There was the egg, there was the vehicle, seeing the ego and language as a technology. There was seeing the ego as a universal mirage. There was seeing the ego as a... Oh yeah, I remember. It's seeing the ego as the earth. So everything that the person has ever fathomed to be unnatural technically is natural. It's just that to our preference of what nature has to be is unnatural. And you can even say a surfboard, where if the ego is seen as a surfboard, it's how we balance ourselves. Literally how the outer realms and inner realms sync up suggests our psychology of the day, really. A person having a bad day, their inner realm is not in sync with the outer realms. A person having a great day, a day where whatever happens in the outer realms, it's as if their inner realms are incredibly and even more sync with the outer realms. You know, one manner the inner realms are not in sync. In another manner, the inner realms don't only trust the outer realms; they trust it enough to create it. You see, this is what they don't say, but creation is an incredible state of trust. The same way your hand has to trust the pen before you can use it to draw or write something. Right? So without trust, you cannot activate intelligence. So if a person on this planet just trained their attention to just learn and just practice trusting life to see what happens, I would say you would become an incredibly advanced knower of at least one human being's attention. Can you imagine, like, in one parallel universe, we're going from the past to the future? Imagine another parallel universe, the future is being rewinded towards the past. And there's a midway point where we just all, like, are at the same moment. Can you imagine the educational system of the future being so advanced? It's as if children are going on interdimensional field trips to other advanced civilizations of Earth. Because I'm telling you, if we want to point fingers at imagination not being real, the question has to be, why is it there then? That means if the person, if we consider free will as an illusion, why is it here? You know? And so everything is an illusion if it is not engaged. That means a conscious potential that is not activated makes life an illusion. So this conscious potential, there's different ways for it to activate. Most people are seeking like IKEA catalogs of truth, like to build their lives. But I will tell you, it's like if you only had a mirror in this world, that would be enough. You know, for me, in this picture I chose, there was something incredible about this picture, where I was like, this is like, you know, the archetype of this is the guy in mind in the future. The guardian daughters of the guy in the future. You see, in this character, in this picture, I don't know who drew it. Whoever drew it was a genius. I don't know why there isn't a museum of science fiction art. It would become the most important museum. It'll become the most booked museum. Or I should say art gallery. Anyways, this character, you can totally see that nobody just wears something. Like when you wear something, you're taking the role. And of course, aside from the role of the responsibility of like the mission at hand, it's as if somebody finds a sword and shield in their hand in the middle of a battlefield. Okay, the purpose becomes using what is there. If you find yourself in a moment where, for example, there's a paintbrush and a canvas in front of you, the purpose of the moment becomes drawing, for example. So many moments, their purpose is defined by what we have access to, and actually where we are, like what is going on. So when I wonder about if I was somehow like the sky watching over the event, like when I wonder about what this character is looking at, I can totally say it is like it's like plan A didn't work. You know, it's as if, imagine she has, like, this character has to fight a giant alien, right? She doesn't care if she has like 6 robotic hands, you know? You see, so when you have to fight giant aliens, the 6 robotic hands become weird. But if we didn't have to fight robotic aliens and we were like, we want to make a suit with 6 robotic hands, we'd be like, no way, that's weird, you know? So we have to envision so much further to make sure that we're way more than one step ahead. It's as if it's like if it takes 10 steps to be like 1 step ahead, the person needs to be, for example, like 100 steps ahead. So much of what happens in life is really just the will of continuity, and how effort is directed, and how much there's awareness of how the moment is, how nature is being before you are. Because that is really knowledge. Everything else is self-knowledge. That means there's a knowledge where we're like, what is the world doing? And then there's a knowledge where, what are we doing? And then there's a knowledge, what is the world and us doing in the moment? Okay, excuse me. All my efforts, guys, in these talks are ultimately to try to find how far the species has looked at life. All of philosophy, all of knowledge to me, there was a time where its classification and scholarly merit, like there was a point where knowledge was definitely like a mountain to climb. But then after some point you begin seeing there's more to life than linearized comprehension of what's going on. That means, strangely, we're at a phase where we can't know what is going to happen in the future. We can only know what has happened and what is happening, but what will happen in the future? There is a very interesting story. And there's this sage, let me say it like this. There's this man. There we go. There's this man, he goes into the forest and he just sits there. He's been living a busy life filled with various games, various programs consuming his life force, and he just goes into nature and he sits there. And he sits there for so long that he cultivates an inner peace. He starts understanding that nature is doing something that the human conditioned cultural mind can't even fathom, because it is too self-glorified. This man attains such inner peace, and as his inner peace grows and grows, one day he opens his eyes and he sees there are 500 disciples in front of him. And there's one of these disciples that is always smiling. And everybody, all the disciples, called him the smiling disciple, because whatever happened, this disciple was just smiling at all the other ones. You know, to a point where all the disciples, okay, there's something wrong with this person. How could he be like happy and pleasant and peaceful all the time? Like, it makes no sense. But this was the smiling disciple. And only the sage, only the man who had gone into the forest and all the disciples had come, only he knew why that sage was, why that disciple was smiling. Now what happens is winter comes, and all these sages in the forest, all the inner peace of all these 500 disciples has increased, but winter has come, and the king, which is having problems everywhere in the kingdom, like just the hardships of being king. And what happens is what happens is the king says, "It's winter is coming, come to my kingdom." The sage in the forest accepts this. They go to the kingdom. The king is constantly trying to make time to go and talk to this sage, to these wise men in the forest who have cultivated great peace and whatnot. And what happens is the king doesn't have the time, and winter passes, and on the day where they're all going, suddenly the king arrives. And the sage, which has become an old man in one winter, the sage who, let's say, like a lot of time passed in the forest and they came into the kingdom. The sage who was an old man, the king looks at him and says, listen, dear sage, you're very old. To go back into the forest would be a hardship for you. I am a king and I need counsel. And so counsel me and send your disciples to the forest. They are grown enough to take care of themselves. And it's a very like rational argument, you know. And so, as this story goes, the sage looks at the smiling disciple and says, "You are the torchbearer now." And in some sense, he sends the smiling disciple, and the smiling disciple understands, and they go. So all the disciples, with the smiling disciple becoming the guru to them, they go into the forest, and this old sage stays with the king. And the old sage starts giving this king like counsel, and the old sage is like, "Oh my God, like what is this king doing?" You know. But the old sage guides the king pretty much. Now what happens is, and there were more details about how he guides the king. Like there was something where it was like the wives of the king were, the different wives of the different queens were trying to forward their princes, you know. And there was something about the council where the king would go into the council and he didn't know who to trust. And anyways, so the sage helps him with these. This is all a Zen story, guys. So what happens is, some time passes and the smiling disciple comes back. He comes back to the kingdom, this time alone, to see how the sage is doing. And the smiling disciple and all the other disciples, as they stayed in the forest, they experienced more and more peaceful living, you know. So they became incredibly like free from at least their own mind savageness beings. And so what happens is that this smiling disciple goes into the kingdom and he goes to the sage and they're having tea, right? And then this smiling disciple sees his old master has become old, and he in some sense just looks at him and says, "Oh, what happiness! Oh, what happiness!" You know. And the sage continues talking, and it's a very good energy kind of moment. Happy moment. And now the king suddenly walks in to the room, right? And usually when a king walks in, and especially back in that time, it's as if you have to acknowledge the king's presence, right? Now something strange happens. The king comes into the room, and of course the sage is old, so the sage just nods his head. And this person, though, the smiling disciple, just continues to say, "Oh, what happiness! Oh, what happiness!" And the king, suddenly his ego, hulks out. And his ego kicks in, and so the king suddenly is like, this person doesn't know I'm a king. He's in my palace, and he doesn't respect the king. And he looks at the sage and he says, "Your disciple seems that he's sat somewhere, for so long and done nothing, that he has no responsibility, no discipline, and he doesn't think straight." Something like this. And in the middle of the king, about trying to use the weight of his crown to crush the lower class. As the king is saying this, the sage suddenly looks at this king and says, "King, stop." And the king suddenly is like, You too? I'm joking. The king looks at the sage and says, why? And there's a pause. And the smiling disciple is literally undisturbed, literally as if watching this king, this human being, even though wearing a crown and being a king, literally just play his own theater in front of him, the smiling disciple. And so what happens is the old man, the sage, stops the king and says, King, you don't know something. And the king says, what? And he says, this smiling disciple that you feel he's a fool, he used to be a man, guided, escorted by armored guards. He used to be a man where kingdoms would send him gifts. He used to be a king. The king is suddenly just stands straight for a second. And suddenly it's starting to click for him who the smiling disciple is and how only the sage knew and why the smiling disciple. And the sage says, this man was a king, but he gave all of that up because he found the kingdom within. He found the true, where life's true game is at. Not just the costume games of ideological worship. And so the king suddenly realizes, whoa, you can be a king of a world, but that doesn't mean you found the actual throne. That means, I'm telling you, there's a long history of wise mystics just scolding kings, as backup systems of civilization, just shamans, like shamanic figures, just out of nowhere coming and shouting at kings like, get your shit straight, and just leaving. There's another king story I'll share. I have to share it. This king story. There's a king in Vedanta. It's not Jenica, but there's this king. This king suddenly wakes. I don't know. Maybe it is Jenica. This king wakes up and has a dream that he's a beggar. He's a king sleeping in like the king's chamber as a king. His crown's beside his pillow, like instead of his teddy bear. Oh my god. This should be probably documented, how many kings sleep with their crown like beside them. If a king sleeps with their crown on their head, that king is a freak, Anyway, sorry, I'll get back to the story. This king dreams he's a beggar. And in Vedic thought, there's the idea of reincarnation, and they had this vision that your behavior will foreshadow where you're going to head up. So from your present, you can kind of tell how your future is going to happen to you. This king goes to this guru in the kingdom as he's woken up in the middle of the night, and he says, I dreamt I'm a beggar. Does this mean I'm going to be a beggar in my next life? This king is saying this to this holy man in the kingdom. And the holy man says no. Sorry, excuse me. The holy man doesn't say no. The king says, am I going to be a beggar? And the holy man says, the guru of the king says, you are neither a beggar, you are neither a king. Who are you? This is again how wisdom, like the lightning of Zeus, just comes to sculpt the kingly archetype, come to resculpt the kingly archetype, to repolish or to crystallize. But anyways, so he says, "Who are you?" And the king suddenly realizes, and he says, the king looks at him and says, "I am neither a beggar, I am neither a king, I am." Something in these lines. So that's the thing. Our being is a salvation for however way we're doing things, you see what I mean? Wonder about your mind's room. Treat your eyes, your brain, your intelligence. First thing is accept the outer realms really quickly so you can study your inner realms. Now, when it comes to studying the inner realms, you're trying to figure out literally as if like if you were to move your hands, like whoever's listening to me, just move your hand in there. Okay, just raise your hand in there. Okay, so if you raise your hand in the air, that was an instantaneous and consciously known movement. Now the idea is to have the body still and try to see how our mind's activity is literally as instantaneous as how our limb moved. And so anybody who studies their attention, of course, mysticism is not for the faint of heart. That means these talks are not for those who, let me say it like this, it's for those who want to see the actual event before their eyes. Please. That's it. We're alive once. All our dreams, all our ambitions, all of this, who is it for? That means when I think about all the effort I've put in my life to just maintain myself in this existence, and when I think about it, I mean, sure, but in a longer time span, it's as if it's like, do we really only care for like just the lifespan of the human being, or do we care for the endless endurance of the species? You know, it's like to identify with your species. Can you imagine in a society where any identity can be reality? Imagine somebody comes and says, "I identify as the whole species," and people are like, "What do you mean? How can you identify as the whole species?" And he's saying, we are all one present species, as sort of collective mind to the species. So it doesn't matter if you're an individual or not, just the human idea lingers in its own field. Anyways, guys, one last thing is, rather than fearing the future, if we can love our future, we have liberated the past from what the present felt it could not do for it. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I think there was something in the subtitle. Oh yeah, and when your inner realm activated, that's just language I'm using. What it is you're noticing the eyes of your eyes beyond these eyes. And without trust, how can anything be done? So that's the key to the door. Namaste.